Morning.
Now that we're back at 5:30, I guess for the next month we should tell it. Could be it's already on the schedule, but we should still let him know. Okay, today we're going to start on Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. Abba Snifim Shalzav Hayasham. This is quite a Gemara today. Thank Hashem that they're able to learn Torah every day. It's less of our learning Hashem's Beis Hamikdash. Says that there were four stands, four supports, props for the Lechem Apanim, because there were two rows of six loaves of showbread. Each row of six had two, one on each side to support it. That would be four. How do we know that we have these snifim? So it's the middle of the page on 97a. It says, Rav Katina says, it says in the pasuk, Vasisa karesa kapesav kashesav menachos. It says that you'll make the. Let's take a look at the pasuk inside. This is the is that Shmais? The letters of my Gemara cut off. What chapter in 25, 29? So yeah, it says after it says that you make the staves, the poles out of wood and cover them with gold, and with them you'll carry the table. Then it says you should also make tables, bread molds. That's kareisav. Kapaisav is its spoons. Kasaisav is its separating bars. Remember we had the half pipes that went in between the loaves. Asher yusach behin, which will cover the breads and allow ventilation. They add in parentheses. Zav tar, all out of gold. Tasais, and we should make them. Okay, so the Gemara is going to explain exactly the way it was translated here. It says kareisav when it says what does it call it? Bowls. The bowls elu defusim. This is referring to the molds that we had, not moldy, but the molds, the forms that we had to bake the bread. They were used beforehand to hold it, and then during the baking, I think, or after the baking. Kapaisa vela bezichan. These are the spoons that were filled with the incense, right? Kasaisa vela snifim. Yeah, right. Kasaisa vela snifim. This is the supports. Two pshatim in Rashi. One says that it's because it's an extra word. We're understanding that. Another one says that kaseisav actually means that it makes it hard. So it means it supports it so it doesn't crack. Menachos is like some sort of cleaner. So elukanim, these are the half pipes that went in between the bread so that the breads don't get moldy. Ashiyusach bem. What does that mean? Ashiyusach bem, that it covers over like schach. That they cover over the breads. Rav has a question. We learned in the Mishnah that the arranging of the pipes in the breads, in between the breads, right, in between the loaves, they would put pipes in, and the removing of those pipes does not push off Shabbos. We said, what does it have to do with Shabbos? What's the malacha? We said it was some sort of building or possibly construction. So v'isal kadaitach deraisa, and if you would say that it's a deraisa that you have to have them amayin as a Shabbos, we learned in the pasuk that you're supposed to have these pipes. Are you telling me you can't push off Shabbos? It says in the Torah. It says hadam merabalav milsi damri. It says that my question wasn't a real question. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, klalam Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva gave a rule: kol malach shef shalala seis me'erev Shabbos ein adeichas a Shabbos. Can do it before, then it doesn't push off Shabbos, even though it's in the Beis Hamikdash, and it says that you're supposed to do it. It says, but if you can do it before, then it doesn't push off Shabbos. Bani Nami, when it comes to these pipes, these half pipes, Efshad Leidachi Shabbos Alayo. It's possible that you don't have to do them on Shabbos. You don't have to be Deicha Shabbos just for them. Time of my, what's the reason? What's the reason why you have them b'chlal? The leil afish lechem, so the bread doesn't become moldy. In such a small amount of time, it's not going to become moldy in just in 24 hours. Kedetani was taught in a brisa. Kate said, how was it done? You remove them before Shabbos from the old stash, from the ones that are going to be removed on Shabbos. They switch the bread on Shabbos. Ones that are going to be removed on Shabbos, which is going to be handed out to the Kohanim, you already take the pipes, the half pipes out from before, the racks. You take them out from before. And you put them on the length of the shulchan. I didn't know there was any room left over there. No, Taisha says on the floor. Layach HaShulchan on the floor. Okay. Umaytzi Shabbos, Nichnas Magbiya Reisha Shel Chala Machnes Kanatachta. I skipped the line, must be. Yeah, no. Umaytzi Shabbos, what's the above? Umaytzi Shabbos, and on Umaytzi Shabbos, you would come in, Magbiya Reisha Shel Chala, you would lift up the top, Machnes Kanatachta, V'cheser Magbiya Reisha Shel Chala, Machnes Kanatachta, you would come fix it, you would put the pipes back in on the new bread. No. And they weren't able to. No. You just set it up without the rods. No. Lachatchila, they set it up without the rods before Shabbos. Even though it had rods the whole week, they would come in and they would remove the rods on Friday. That way on Shabbos, they didn't have to remove them. And they would bring in the new bread on Shabbos without the rods. Now, Mitzvah Shabbos, they would come in and put in the rods in the proper places. First, they would bring it in without the rods. Yeah. So there's 4 of the loaves that needed 3 rods underneath them. But the top row only needed 2. Because of the weight wasn't so big, so it could still hold, the airspace between them was still good. And the bottom one didn't require rods because it was put directly on the table. And from the table, it wouldn't get moldy because the table was naturally cold. It was gold, naturally cold. It wouldn't get moldy. Okay. That was the easy part of this Gemara. Okay, now get your pencils ready, Rabbi Isai. Here goes a little bit of math, a little bit of complication. Nan Hasam, learned over there in a Mishnah. Is this Mishnah? Kalim says, Reb Meir says, Kol Amishei b'mikdash beininis, putz mi mizbeach hazav, va'keren, va'sevev, va'yesayid. How big is an amma? Officially, an amma is from the elbow to the top of the middle finger. That's an amma. Maybe it's 18 inches. So, how many tfachim is that? So, normally it's understood that an amma is 6 tfachim. If every tefach is 3 inches, that would be 18 inches. If every tefach is 4 inches, 4 inches. Right? There's machlekes here on the size of this, but that's like a modern machlekes. We're not discussing the modern machlekes, how many in inches. We're going to discuss how many tefachim is in the amma. So Reb Meir says that a typical amma is an amma beininis, with an exception of the mizbeach hazav, the keren, the corners of the mizbeach chitzain, the sevev and the yesod. The sevev is the walkway, and the yesod is the foundation. Okay, Moshe, we're learning about a very general machlekes about how big an amma is in the Beis Hamikdash.
Okay.
Typically an amma is 6 tvachim. The Meir says that there's an exception in 4 places where an amma is only going to be 5 tvachim.
Okay.
Rabbi Yehuda says amas binyan shisha tvachim. Rabbi Yehuda says that it depends. If you're dealing with construction, the way you build construction, that's going to be an amma is going to be 6 tvachim. But shel kelim is chamisha. going to be it's not construction. It's talking about the amma that's used to measure utensils, not actual like outdoor construction like that, but just the indoor stuff. That's going to be 5 tvachim. So is there such a thing as like a workman's measurement versus someone else's measurement? I think there's examples of that somewhere. Anyway, Rabbi Yehuda says that there's actually the amma of 5 tvachim is actually used throughout everywhere where there's kalim in the Beis Hamikdash. All the kalim of the Beis Hamikdash were all 5. It says how many ammas it's supposed to be. It was only. Let me give you an example. It says the aron was an amma and a half by 2.5 ammas, by 1.5 high, an amma and a half by 2. So would you say when it's 1.5? Is that 9 tvachim? Because it's 6 plus 3 according to Reb Meir, or according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's 5 plus 2.5. It's only 7.5, right? Right? It's going to be a machlekes how big the aron is, how many tvachim it is. So it's a machlekes Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, now Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now they're both going to agree that the mizbeach hazav, the keren, the seviv, and the yisoid are going to be 5 ammas of 5 tvachim. We're going to use a different measuring, right? Measuring, what's it called? What do you think they pulled the thing out? Measuring tape. I'm going to use a tape measure. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan shnei mikrecha darshu. Rabbi Yochanan says that you learn them both from one pasuk. It says ve'elam midas hamizbeach ba'amis amma b'teifach. This is the measurement of the mizbeach. We used the amma to measure the mizbeach. This is in Yechezkel. The type of amma we used was an amma with a tefach. Instead of an amma, sorry. No, we'll do fine. We'll make it through. The amma with the tefach, and now an amma with the tefach. Why would you say an amma with the tefach? Because really, we're saying that an amma is really 5 tvachim, but the amma on the mizbeach was going to be 6 tvachim, an amma plus a tefach. However, the cheka amma, there was the chek was used a different amma that the Gemara is going to tell us is referring to the foundation, and the amma reichav, and then there was an amma of width. Ugvul al sfas saviv, and there was a boundary all around it. Zeres echad, that was zeres echad. The zeres is, it would help if I had a little mizbeach here, but zeres echad is from here to here. It's a half a amma. This measurement, so you need 2 of these to measure from your elbow. Stretch out your thumb. Almost. 2 of these is is an amma. So we say that that's v'zeh gav ha-mizbeach. This is going to be the top of the mizbeach. Now the Gemara is going to explain what this pasuk means. It starts off like this: cheka amma. When you said that that we're going to use an amma of 5 tvachim, that's zeh yisoid. That's referring to the foundation. That's the foundation. If you remember, the mizbeach was built bottom part of the mizbeach being 32 ammas long by 32 ammas wide, 32 by 32. That was the bottom. Now the truth is that bottom of the mizbeach didn't actually go around the whole thing, but it doesn't matter. It went, it only took up two sides, but it protruded over the edges. So it was missing one. Like one corner was empty of the side, but it doesn't matter. If you would measure it from end to end, from both, at least on the parts that it had, it would be 32 by 32. Then it went in 1 amma, and then you had 5 ammas that it went up. And when it went up 5 ammas, at that point it went in another amma each. So instead of, it starts 32 at 32, but each one was each side is an amma, so now it's down to 30 width. It goes up another 5 ammas, which is a total of 6 ammas off the ground now. And then it goes in an amma. So that instead of being 30 is now 29, 28. No, it's 28 by 28, the mizbeach. Then it goes up another 3 ammas. Well, it was 6, now it's 9. And then you have the corners. The corners are an amma each. So that makes the total together from the corner to the till the top of the corner till the ground is 10 ammas. All right, 10 ammas. If we were holding by 28 here. If you go inside the corners, it's going to be 26. Then there was a little walkway. All right, one amma walkway that went all the way around. So that means an amma on each side. So that means when you come down to how much room you had in the center of the mizbeach, you only had 24 ammas in the center of the mizbeach. Okay, the way the Gemara is going to measure it, it's going to measure it from the center of the mizbeach to the edge, that area. It's going to call it 12 ammas. From the center to the end to the sides, it's going to be 12. Okay, so now what we're going to discuss is 10 amas tall. 10 amas tall. The problem is that not all of those amas are the same size amma. The mayor told us, and I guess everyone is going to agree with this, that the amma of the Yisoid, the foundation, is an amma of 5 tvachim. The amma of the Soiviv was after 6 amas up, 5 amas from the that walkway. There were 2 walkways here. There was one, or 3 really. If you want to walk on the foundation, that would be one walkway. If you want to walk on the Soiviv, which was a walkway in the middle, and then if you wanted to walk on the top walkway, there was but the amma of the Soiviv was also a 5 tvachim amma. Okay. And then the corner was a 5 tvachim amma. The corners were 5 tvachim. The Gemara says like this: the border that goes around, that was the corners. This is the top of the mizbeach. Zeh mizbeach hazav. So we say zeh gav mizbeach. The top of the mizbeach. That's referring to that besides for the 3 parts of the Mizbeach HaChitzain, which were 5 Tvachim Amma. There's also the Mizbeach Hazav, the golden Mizbeach. There's a Mizbeach that was outside that they used for animal sacrifices. Besides for that, the golden Mizbeach inside the sanctuary was also an Amma of 5 Tvachim. That was like, I think, an Amma and a half by or something. No. The inside one was like 2 ammas by 1 amma or something. It was very small, the inside mizbeach. Forget how tall it was. It was an amma by 2 ammas, I think. Okay. But which type of amma would be that would be the 5 tvachim. Reb Meir Savar, Zeu b'amma bas chamisha. When you say Zeu, we say this is an amma of 5 tvachim, ha kol amis kelim b'amma bas sheish. That means, if you're telling me that this is a special type of amma, that means that you have limited use of this amma, but every other amma was always a 6 tvachim amma. The pasuk is telling me in special cases you use the 5 tvachim amma. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kazeyu kol amas kelim." No, the pasuk is telling me that every time you measure kelim, you always use an amma of 5 tvachim. The question is if it was special cases, or if it was always like that. That's a machlekes Ramein Rabbi. Okay. Sal Kadaitach, Gemara assumes we start off in this discussion and to discuss the height of the mizbeach. We said the height of the mizbeach was 10 amas tall, right? In order to discuss this properly, we're going to need to convert everything over into tvachim. All right. So, for example, if it's 10 amas tall and all the amas are 6 tvachim amma, then it's going to be 60 tvachim tall, up to the corners. From the height of the corners, it's going to be 60 tvachim. If it's not 6 tvachim amas, it's 5 tvachim amas, then it would be 50 tvachim, right? But we know that some of them are 6 and some of them are 5. So the Gemara will go through this. So okay. So it's like this. The foundation is a 5 tvachim amma. So if you started with 60 tvachim, we're really off by one. It's really 59. My cheka amma, the amma rechav. So what's the cheka amma and amma rechav? Hachikama. It means like this. Mecheka amma v'ad rechav v'amma bas chamisha. No. It's not just the bottom. That's 5 tvachim. It's actually the first 6 amas of the mizbeach are all 5 tvachim, up until the sefer. It says goiva mizbeach kama. How tall is the mizbeach? Eser amas. We know it's 10 amas. Shis b'nei chamisha. 6 of those amas, which is the. Let me just tell you, just for clarification, there was a red line that went around the mizbeach, which was the midpoint of the mizbeach. That red line was 1 amma underneath the sefer. So you would walk. It's not symmetrical. The walkway was not perfectly in the center. The walkway was above the center. You had 6 amas on the bottom, 4 amas on the top. 3 of those amas was actually the mizbeach. 4th amma was the kronis, was the corners.
The red line.
Yeah, where you put the blood either above or below. Yeah. So now we're saying that the bottom 6 amas were all 5 tvachim amas. What's that total? That would be 30 tvachim. 6 times 5. Okay. Barba, and then the top ones would be b'nei shisa would be 6 tvachim. What's that? 24. So 24 plus 30 would be 54. Mizbeach kama havi. How big would the mizbeach be? 54 54 tvachim. 10 amas equals 54 tvachim. According to this, because 6 are one type and 4 are another type. Palgid the mizbeach kama havi. How tall is half of the mizbeach? Yeah. So how tall is the mizbeach now? 54. How tall is half of the mizbeach? Esrim b'shiva, 27. Right? So, mikronis vad seviv kamahave. How big is it from the corner till the seviv? Till the seviv. From the corner. Esrim arba. We said that would be 24. Kama batzer lepalga the mizbeach. When you're standing on the seviv and you have to get to half the mizbeach, you're going to reach down under your feet. You're going to lean over on that ledge. The mothers would not appreciate this, leaning over a ledge. You lean over that ledge, the 1 amma ledge, and you reach down and you want to touch the red line. How many tvachim down would you have to go? So we know that the red line would be halfway is 27, right? Half of them there is 27. Where are you standing? You're standing on 24. You're standing on 24 down. So downward is going to be klasa. It's going to be 3 tvachim down. You reach down 3 tvachim. So it means the red line is going to be under the seviv, 3 tvachim beneath it. Utanan, but we have a Mishnah that says chut shel sikra. There's a red line, chaygrei be'emtza, which is like a belt around the center, which divides between the equator, which divides between the blood that's supposed to go above the line and above the blood that goes below the line. Remember which karban the blood goes above the line was the oila sa'oif, the bird. We said oila oif, bird flies, it goes up, it's elevation offering. Both of them means that the blood goes above the line. It's a way to remember that. The problem is we have a brisa. What's the aleph? The Tanya Gabriel Sa'if, it says about regarding the Oila Sa'if, if he goes up the ramp, upon a Seviv, he turns to the Seviv, and he doesn't go all the way up to the top. He walks on the walkway. He comes to the southeast corner. Meilakas Reisha, he severs the head with his fingernail. Mimul Arpa, from the back of the neck. Umavtal, and he separates that. And he squeezes the blood against the corner of the mizbeach. And if he decides that he wants to squeeze it below his feet, you can reach down below your feet. Even 1 amma, it's going to be kosher. You can't do an amma. You only have 3 tvachim according to this. How big is an amma? Even if you say an amma is 5 tvachim, but 3 to 5, you're still missing. You still have your 2 tvachim over if you're going to do an amma. Okay, so we're in trouble. Our calculation doesn't work based on the Mishnah. Elacheka amma is knisa. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say that when we said that the Yisoid, the Yisoid is an amma of 5 tvachim. It's not the height of the Yisoid. It's the like the step. I don't know typically how steps are. It's like a half a foot by a foot, maybe half a foot by a foot. Like would be if they have one off, so then it's like this imbalance. People could trip chas v'shalom. So here what we're saying is that the amma going up was actually 6 tvachim. The amma going in was 5 tvachim. Now we're going to change the height. We're going to add one more tefach to the bottom, right? Getting closer to 60. Let's take a look. Amarechav is knisa. Gvul sasasaviv is knisa. The mizbeach kama havelu shitin. If all of these things, all of the things that we said, that were really only that were 5 amas, that we said that there were some amas that were 5 amas, we are not talking about the height of the mizbeach. We're talking about the going in, the horizontal, not the vertical. So then we're going to be back to 6 tvachim amas all the way up to the top. If that's the case, then how tall is the mizbeach? It's going to be 60 tvachim, right? Palgi the mizbeach kamahave. How big is going to be half the mizbeach? It's going to be plus. It's going to be 30. From the corners until the seviv is going to be Avdalet, 24. Why is it 24? Because you have 4 tvachim, 4 amas. I'm sorry, from the seviv up to the top of the corner, and those are all 6 tvachim amas. So 4 times 6 is 24. So kama batzil palga the mizbeach. If you're standing on the seviv, you have 24 amas to the top. How much do you have beneath you? You have 36. Because the whole thing is, so if you reach down beneath your feet to touch the chut sikra, how many tvachim are you reaching down? 6 tvachim. That's an amma. Shisha. It works perfectly. So we have our answer. Everything works. Okay, we figured it out. That the height is like this. Okay, not so quick. 1 second. Now we're going to have another problem. Mayu Kimta, how did you establish that where the amma of 5 tvachim is beknisa is in the vertical line in the horizontal line going inward? That's the amma of 5, right? The amma of the yesod, the foundation, is a 5 tvachim amma. The amma of the seva is a 5 tvachim amma. The amma of the corners is a 5 tvachim amma going in. But the heights are all 6 tvachim height. So they weren't like the corners weren't the cube, according to that. So, mimatz mukmes beknisa. Are you able to say this? We're going to have another problem. You ready? The next problem says vatanan. We learned in the Mishnah. Mizbeach yeshleishim mishtayim al shleishim mishtayim. The mizbeach was 32 by 32. Allah amma v'kanas amma. You go up one amma and you walk in an amma. Zeh yesod. That's the foundation. Nimtza shleishim al shleishim. That means what's left of the mizbeach is 30 by 30. The base is the widest part.
Houses, sometimes the ceiling is 7 feet high, sometimes it's 8 feet high, sometimes it's 10 feet high, and it's still considered a floor. It's just
Right. No, wasn't there a baker's? Was there a baker's dozen or something? But is there another type of measurement where it's like one off?
maybe that.
There's some type of measurement where it's not the same. Okay, anyway.
It's hard to make a lot of houses, it's like solids and
Right.
composite.
Right. So we're holding now shleishim al shleishim. 30 by 30. Gemara says not 30 by 30. Shleishim mishnei tvachim hava. It's really 30 by 30 plus 2 tvachim. Besu, another problem is all the chamish v'kanas amma Zo Seviv. You go up five amas, and you go in one amma. That's the Seviv. Nimtza, Eser Mishmena, Eser Mishmena, which means that we're 28 by 28 now, because you moved in one, no, it's two amas already, moved in from each side. 32, move in an amma on each side, you're now on 30. You go up again, move in an amma on each side, you're now at 28. It says 28, Eser Mishmena, the Arba Tvachim Avi. It's 28 plus 4 Tvachim. Because each of those amas was really a 5 Tevach. Amma is really larger than just 28. It's 28 plus 4. Plus 4 Tvachim. Maybe we're not using fractions. Right? We don't want to use any decimals here. So what we said that it's 28. We didn't want to get into the details. Right? We got rid of the pennies. Makim, the Gemara says, well, Makim Kranis Amma Mizev Amma Mizeh. We said that the area of the corners was an Amma this way and Amma that way. That means it was a square. Nimtz Eser Mishtay V'Sheish Al Eser V'Sheish comes out that when you're on the top of the Mizbeach, inside the corners, it's 26 by 26. 1 second. 26, because you move in one Amma from each side from 28. Now it's 26. Eser Misheva Have, it's really 27 because each one of those was an extra two tvachim. The 2 plus 2 plus 2 gives you a whole 6 tvachim, gives you a whole amma. You wanted to tell me that you didn't want to use decimals. Well, now you're at a point where you have a full amma. You have to say it's 27, not 26. The Gemara says leidak. Wasn't precise. Makim hilach ragli kayinim amma mizev amma mizeh. We continue. Say the area where the kayinim walk is also an amma. Nimtza, what comes in inside that area, is Nimtza Esrim V'Arba al Esrim V'Arba. 24 by 24. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Makam Amracha, it's not 24 by 24. Esrim V'Chamishav is 25. Because you got the extra amma from the Tvachim. If you want to say that it wasn't precise, you're calling it 24, it's really 25. You can't say that because we have a pasuk that discusses this. You can't say that the pasuk is leidak, that the pasuk wasn't precise. Maybe the Mishnayos was giving just the general thing. It says Ariel, which is referring to the Mizbeach, the lion. Called the Mizbeach is called Ariel. Shtei Mesri Yoirech, Shtei Mesri Yoichav. Ravua was 12 by 12. Yachol Shenel Shtei Mesri. Maybe it's only 12 by 12. It says for the 4 corners, that means that we're measuring from the middle. Each corner was a 12 by 12. Yeah, there's 4 squares of 12 by 12, which would be 24 by 24. So so you're telling me that it's 24. It's really going to be 25 if you're going to accept the answer that we gave. Maybe translation. 6 of the 32 amas of the altar were originally measured with an amma of 5 tvachim, in which case the Mishnah's figures are correct. Why are the Mishnah's figures correct? We're suggesting that when the altar was originally built, only 26 of its 32 amas were 6 tvachim, 6 tefach amas. The other 6 were 5 tefach amas. 6 smaller amas accounted for the 6 5 tvachim amas that were used in measuring the base, ledge, and horns. When these 6 amas were subtracted, the altar remained precisely 26 amas of 6 tvachim each. saying basically that all our questions are not questions because when we're giving it measurements, we actually meant amas of different size, of a different size. Says if that's the case, then we're going to be stuck with another problem because we're going to measure the entire azara, and it's not going to work out with the way we're measuring the mizbeach with different amas. The Tanan says imkain. If so, imkain Rav Chali Azar. Really, the azara is going to be bigger than the way it's measured in the Mishnah. The Tanan, we have a Mishnah. I think this is in Midas. In Midas, it says, Kol Azara Yoirech Meya Ushmeina V'Sheva. The Azara was 187 amas long. Al Reichav Meya Shleishim V'Chamish, by 135. Mizrach Lamarav Meya Ushmeina V'Sheva. From east to west was 187. Makam Jis's Ragli Yisrael, we start to count. The area at the beginning, right when you came through the door, was Achas Esriyama, was 11. Makam Jis's Ragli Kayanim, there was another small area which you had over there, Achas Esriyama, was another 11. You're holding by 22, right? HaMizbeach, Shleishim Rishtayim. The Mizbeach is 32. So 22 plus 32, what's that going to be? 54, right? In Ulam la Mizbeach, between the Ulam and Mizbeach is another 22. Esrim Rishtayim Amma. So 54, now we're holding by 76. HaHeichal Meyama, 176 now. And then, Achas Esriyama, Acher Beis HaKapiros. And then there's 11 Amas behind. So 176 plus 11 is 187. So we have a problem over here because you told me that you have 187. You don't have 187. You have 186 because the mizbeach that you called 32 wasn't really 32. It was really 31 because three of those amas, or actually 6 of those amas, were only 5 tvachim. The Gemara says, rather, what we're going to need to do over here is that the amma of the Yesod, which we said was 5 tvachim amma, is talking about its height. Amma Reichav, when we spoke about the Seivev, that's the Knisa. That's the horizontal. Okay? Now it doesn't matter already when you talk about the corners if it's the height or if it's the horizontal. Why? Because we're gonna explain it like this. Mizbeach Kamahava, we're on top of 98. How tall was the Mizbeach? Chamshin B'Tamnaya. It was really 58. Why are we at 58? Because there were 2 amas here that were not real, that were not 6 tvach. We only took off 2. 2 amas. Halgi the Mizbeach Kamahava. Which 2? The foundation and the top corner. Half of the mizbeach, if it's 58 kamahavi, would be esrim v'tisha, would be 29. Half of the mizbeach is 29 plus 29 is 58. Mikranis vad seiviv kamahavi. How big is it how tall from the seiviv until the top of the corners, or the opposite from the top of the down to the seiviv, is esrim mitlasa. It's only going to be 23. We said before 24 because we were thinking that the corners were an amma of 6 tvachim. But if you subtract when the corners are an amma 5 tvachim, then it's 23. Kama batzel palgam mizbeach. What was half the mizbeach? 29, right? Where are you standing when you're on the seiviv? You're standing on the 23. So you have to reach down another to get to the seiviv. It's another 6 tvachim. Shita, it's perfect. Comes out that the beneath you is 1 amma is 6 tvachim. The economic ksiv, I'll prove it to you. It says Cheka Amma v'Amareichav Shma Mina. You see, it uses a different expression when it talks about the Yesod. It says Cheka Amma. The Chek is like the thigh, something. Is the Amma, and then it says Reichav. It says Amma Reichav, the width of the Amma of the wideness. Now it switched the terms Cheka Amma. Right, Amma Hareichav. Why is it doing that? Because it's coming to tell me that when we said Cheka Amma, we're talking about the height. When to Amma Reichav, we're talking about the Cheka Amma was the vertical. The Amma Reichav, we're talking about the horizontal. So when we drop that, then we have our answer. Now, what the problem is is that now when we deal with the measuring, we're always at a decimal. We don't have to worry about being off an entire amma. That's what are we going to do about the inner part of the mizbeach? It's going to be 12 by 12. It's really one tefach less. Sure.
So from the Mishnah says about the
87.
87,
Right.
we're able to find out how much it was the horizontal, at least at the base. And I was wondering, are like all the horizontal almost the same, or just, and then maybe the verticals were different?
So we're saying now that all the horizontals were the same except for one, the Seifiv. The Seifiv was a 5 tvachim amma. Okay, Shmamina, Kama Amma Bainness. How big, we go back to our very basic discussion over here, how big is a regular Amma, is an average Amma? Rabbi Yechanan Shisha Tvachim, 6 Tvachim. Rabbi Yesi Barav and Afanana Mitanina. We have this also in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir Reimer, Shulchan Arkei Shnei Masar. Rabbi Meir says in our Mishnah that the Shulchan, the table, was 12 Ammas. I'm sorry, 12 Tvachim. Because it was an amma, it was 2 ammas. It was 2 ammas tall. How did it get 12? Because 6 tvachim plus 6 tvachim is 12. Reich v'shisha, and it's wide 6. This is in our Mishnah. We learned this about the breads.
Well, weren't these different? Like, or the table also different?
That was the machlekes from Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. This is exactly the machlekes. Michlal, the havi amma, the nefishimine. Okay, but you said that this is average. That means that there must be an amma that's bigger. You only told me an amma that's less. What's the amma that's bigger? It says, yeah, no, there is an amma that's bigger. But Tanan, and we even have a Mishnah, it says, there was a room, a chamber that was called the room of Shushan Abira. It's the capital, Shushan. And it was on the eastern side of Dazara. And it had an image of Shushan. And over there, hanging on the wall, on the northwest and on the southwest were these measuring sticks, which these measuring sticks were an amma. But however, Shalkern Mizrachis Tzvainis, the measuring stick that was on the northeast was Yisrael Moshe Chasi Etzba, was larger than Moshe Rabbeinu's amma, which was 6 tvachim, by 1 etzba, by a half a finger, half a finger width wider. Then there was another one, which was a half of etzba bigger, half of a finger bigger than that one, which makes it a total of 1 finger bigger than a regular amma. Why do they actually have 1 big and 1 small? They would pay a worker. They didn't want him to end up violating the rules of Me'ilah, so they would have a measuring stick that went over a little bit, so that he shouldn't end up violating anything with mismeasurements. But Tarti Lamali, so why did he need 2? It says, well, it depends. If you're measuring silver and gold, you can't go by inches, go by millimeters, right? So you have a smaller one for the silver and gold, and you have one for construction, which was a little bit bigger, which we might use by centimeters, let's say. Tanan Hassam, we learned in the Mishnah, Shara Mizrachal of Shushan Abira Tzura. On the eastern gate, there was an image of Shushan Abira. My timer, why was that there? Rav Chisda Rabbi Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi. It's machlekes. One says we should always remember where we came from. We came from this exile in Shushan. Now we're in our own Beis Hamikdash, our own land. They should always remember the government. Sounds like it was imposed on them. Rabbi Yanai says, person should always have fear of the government. Moshe Rabbeinu tells Taparai that all of your servants are going to come down and they're going to bow to me, and they're going to say that we should leave Egypt. He doesn't say that you yourself are going to come, even though at the end Pari himself came in the middle of the night. But you don't talk like that to a king. It shows you have to have respect for the king. And Rabbi Yechanan Amar Mehacha, Rabbi Yechanan says, I have another source. It says, Vayad Hashem Haisel Eliyahu Vayeshanis Mastav Yotz Fnei Achav Ad Be'ech Yisrael. This is after the rain started, I think, by the showdown by Achav and remember with Eliyahu and Achav on Har Carmel. They did all that the sacrifices and it rained for what's it called? The fire came down for Eliyahu. Then it started to rain, and they started to run. It started to rain then, or was that the famine then?
No, it started to rain.
Started to rain. They started to run. So it says Eliyahu ran in front of Achav because the king needs to have a runner that goes in front of him. So Eliyahu, who doesn't hold of Achav very much, as you saw, he's wasn't such a chassid of Achav, but he runs in front of him to show respect for the king. You see, he's supposed to show respect to the king no matter what.
Yeah, but at that moment also Achav had Yehurei Truba, like he also saw this miracle. Because right after that, Isabel sends to kill him. The question is, why didn't Ahab kill him rather than there? Because at that moment he was still under the influence of the miracle.
Funny, the Gemara ignores that. Yeah.
But he wasn't so close to him. He traveled a group.
Nevertheless, I guess the lesson is still there that they're always supposed to show that we're subjugated to the king, unless of course they're telling us to violate Torah. But if they're not telling us to violate Torah, then everything else we're under their jurisdiction.
Question: why did they have this picture?
Yeah, because we're under the jurisdiction of the kingdom.
Yeah. And why the first? Why wasn't there by the first?
We weren't under any jurisdiction on the first. Yeah. Okay, have a good day, everyone. Shekayach.
Thank you.
Okay.